And this is the second group for our 2023 PHCL 201 City Campus. This is 12 to 2, week 3. They are building on mind body problem. We initiate the discussion on idealism and tie it in well with reality versus appearance for Russell. We hope that you are properly served. So on our screen now, I'm projecting the mind body problem, which we started with. You know the problem, how are they causally connected? You know the source, it's the official doctrine. You know the ways in which mind has been distinguished from matter, and why it seems to make sense to say that the two are essentially distinct realities, two different substances. And yet you can tell from the various responses given to the problem. I'm projecting whilst I talk. So those who are watching the screen could see that I'm speaking to the slide. Okay, I want you to cultivate that habit and keep it. So you would see from the responses given to the problem that either people are trying to diffuse the possibility of cause and effect and say that, well, they are two realities, but they are not causally connected. It's not a matter of cause and effect, because the cause and effect relationship that is generating the problem of mind and body. We are asking how mind or mental state causally affect physical state, and that is the problem. Not just the fact that there are two ultimate realities, which are essentially distinct. That wouldn't have created any problem. It is the claim that they are causally connected that generates the problem. And so you see that occasionalism, pre-established harmony, almost everyone there is trying to either nullify the fact that there is any causal connection, or even negate the problem itself and say that there isn't any problem, like Ryle is doing, Gilbert Ryle, saying that it is not any problem. Yeah, it is how the person is speaking. The official doctrine folks are confusing different categories of what? Entities. So there aren't actually two substances per se. It's just how the substance functions. There is mind, which is just the embodiment of the whole system of the person. Okay. So it is a human being that feels pain, that feels hungry. He has a hand, which is physical, but she feels pain, which is supposedly non-physical. And non-physical pain or depression must not be another entity per se. Okay, so this is how Gilbert Ryle is dealing with the linguistic problem of mind and body. He thinks it is a linguistic problem. There isn't anything. The linguistic problem emanates from the substance talk, the use of the word substance or thing, saying that there are two things is what is creating the problem. And so I asked you, your colleagues, and I'm telling you also, contact your class rep, let him help you coordinate the compiled data there from the copier guide, and then go through some of the examples that Ryle has used. He talks about you taking the person to see the lecture halls of a university, the registry, what's the other place? Lecture hall registry, maybe canteen. You go and see how exams are done, what have you. You show the person all of those, then this person said, oh, I've seen all of that, but can you show me what the University of Ghana is? What it is? It looks like, why are you asking that question? All I've shown you put together, plus the way the system is organized, how the university runs, is what we mean by University of Ghana. So if I show you all these things and you still ask me, where is University of Ghana? You are confusing two categories. University of Ghana is not a thing. It is the totality, the whole organization and its operations, which you see in the physical things I'm showing you. I showed you the library, BAM library, I showed the post office, I showed you our hospital arrangement, I showed you the lecture halls, the lecturers, how we do promotions, everything put together. The system is what we call what? Mind. So the system must not have an eye and a leg. When you ask me where is the leg of University of Ghana, it is like you're asking a different category, some question that should belong to another category. If you ask what food did the needle eat, we'll all look at you. Nettles don't eat. So that question should be addressed to what food did the human being eat or what food did the dog eat? They belong together in one category. But nettles don't belong to the category that I asked what they eat. Something like that. And so I've elaborated a bit because Gilbert Ryle's own is analytic in approach, his response, also trying to debunk the supposed distinction between mind and body and how they are causally connected. Okay. Then the functionalist and what have you. One of the responses that we said we'll look at is the idealist one, which doesn't even accept that there are two ultimate realities. Idealists, I'm honest, on my screen now. So they think that there is only one reality, which is mind and ideas. Ideas are mental, they're not physical. You don't see it, you don't touch it, you don't taste it. So ideas is what is real. Mind, mental things, mind and ideas, which are all non-physical. That is what exists ultimately, not matter, which has weight and can occupy space. So the idealist reduces the mind-body problem to nothingness. Because if there is only one thing that exists, then they aren't two to be contending against each other. Materialists also say ultimate reality is matter, and we saw that last week. So the idealism we want to look at today emanates from there. It is one of the responses given to the mind-body problem. Now, just before we go into idealism proper, which is important, I think I did this last week, but let me say it again, to show you that rationalists and empiricists are asking the question of knowledge. What do we know? How do we know it? So let's say, how do we know? Rationalists say we know through the mind. Empiricists say we know through the five senses. They are answering the question of how we come to know. How do we gather knowledge? Rationalist says it's the pure activity of the mind. It's not what your eyes see or your ears hear, whatever. Empiricists say, no, it's through the senses. We see, we know. Seeing is believing, hearing, touching, tasting, smelling, etc. So they are answering the question of how do we know? Idealists, on the other hand, are asking the question of what exists, what really exists, what really, reality, existence, metaphysics, what is real. Whereas the earlier folks are asking epistemology, how do we know? And so I keep saying to all the groups I've met that if a rationalist, that means someone who says we know through the mind, the rationalist says what is real is mind and its ideas. In other words, if a rationalist is idealist, that sits well with us. That is consistent, we think. But if an empiricist, the one who says how we come to know is through the senses, empiricist, says what is real is matter. How do we know that thing? You say we know it by seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, or smelling. You react it. So empiricist. What then do we come to know to exist? So when we ask, what does this pathway of knowledge lead us to as existence? So when I use my senses, what does it tell me that reality is? You say, oh, my senses, which are my five senses, tell me that reality is non-physical. Now that is problematic. The real thing is not material. It is ideas. So if you have an empiricist who is idealist, empiricist for his epistemology, idealist for his metaphysics, then we have a problem. Because he says the real thing is not physical, but we use our eyes and ears to come to know the real thing, which is non-physical. You see the immediate question that comes. Do we use our eyes to see souls, for example, spirits, God? Now, that is the tension. So on our screen here, I'm sure I would have said it last week to every group I met. Plato being idealist and rationalist is so okay. Idealist for his metaphysics, rationalist for his empiricism, fit well. But when you have John Locke and John Berkeley, who are empiricist thinkers, that means when it comes to how they come to know, it comes to us, they say it comes to, knowledge comes to us through the senses. Yet they are idealist. Existence for them is non-physical. That generates a lot of problems for us. And from here, we want to read. Who would want to read for us very quickly so that this recording is not too lengthy? We've done over 30 minutes already, I think. Raise your hand quickly if you want to read. Thank you, Blessing. Go ahead. So I put down your name to earn yourself a mark. I would want your full name though, so that I can keep a record of it. Blessing what?
Amponsa is
What's your surname? Blessing Ampons.
ESSU is.
Okay. So Blessing Isu.
Yes.
Great. Go ahead, Blessing.
Two views of idealism. Objective idealist, John Locke. Things, ideas exist apart from our perception, sensing of them. They will continue to exist even if we did not exist to perceive them. Recall Plato. Why is he considered objective idealist?
Very good.
Subjective
Read the second one.
idealist. Subjective idealist, George Berkeley. Things, ideas, depend on perception for their existence. If it is not perceived, sensed, then it cannot. That is, exist. They would cease to exist if
It went down. Sorry.
all perceivers cease to exist. To be
Very
is
good.
to be perceived.
To be perceived. Well done. So the second person, who is Berkeley, empiricist idealist, is making a certain claim. And that is what I want us to look at. The empiricists say the source of knowledge is the senses. Yet, these two that we are going to engage, the empiricists, they are insisting that even though I come to know through the senses, what I know to exist is not physical or material. It is immaterial, which is what? Mind, mental, ideas. However, even though the two are idealist and empiricist, one wants to maintain an objectivity of a kind, even in his idealism. Because if you took idealism as it is, then it will mean that whenever I say I know something, it will be connected to how I know it, how I saw it, how I heard it, how I touched it. So if I touched it, if I felt the table was smooth, then it will be smooth to me. If I saw it to be green, then I would think the table is green. But look at the difference between I saw it to be green and it is green. They are two different statements. I think I see it to be red. It's not the same as it is red. I see it to be red is how the thing appears to me. That's how you see that? I see it to be so. That is my eyes seeing of it. I feel it to be hot. It's not the same as it is hot. It seems to me that the lady cannot give birth. It's not the same as she cannot give birth. One is a statement of knowledge. It comes to me. It presents itself to me as he comes across as a serious student. That is how he comes across to me. That is different from saying he is a serious student or she is a serious student. They are not the same statement. So the one that says that's how it appears to me is a claim of knowledge. The other one that says he is, it is a metaphysical statement. You are making a statement of existence. He is. That is what he is. I see him to be. He said, how I know him empirically. Okay. Now Russell says, excuse me. Berkeley says, as for him, that's why he's a subjective idealist. Any knowledge, any knowing, okay, let me say it differently so that I get it. Whenever I say something is real, it is just a statement of how the thing appears to me. There is no reality except how the thing presents itself to me, the subject, of course. The subject must not necessarily be me, Nancy, but we can learn that one later. Let's learn from one stage to the other. So to be, to exist, to be is to be perceived. Perception just means sense. If I haven't perceived it, then it doesn't exist. John Locke says, oh yes, ideas are the reality, and ideas will always be in the mind that is observing it. So if it is not observed, it does not exist, but not for all ideas, because he wants to make room for the possibility of reality outside of the one that knows it. There can be something there that you haven't known. Let's use some examples. And then the other recording I've done will give you more practical illustrations. It was a bit more extensive there because I want to share it to all the sides. Listen, how the thing appears may just be a part of that reality that you know. And I use the Johnny Bravo example, I keep repeating. To ya slay, Johnny Bravo is the carest, look at it, the most caring guy, the most, friendly, down to earth, respectful guy. He knows how to treat a lady and blah, blah, blah. Because it is to you, addressly. Go and ask Johnny Bravo's mother too, whether that is how Johnny comes across to her. She even said, "Oh, Johnny, you want for no, I'm know ya." Then the way Johnny will give her his peace of mind. Will you be able to fetch water for me before you leave? And Johnny's angry. Johnny, please, want my food. Hey, stop that. Hey, nah. I'm a power some home. You know. And yet that same Johnny for adversity is the guy, caring, gentle, whatever. But to the other person, there's a perspective matters, how they see it. So what is the reality of Johnny as a being? Who is he really? Is he caring? I just lay and say, oh, he appears to me to be caring. That is how I know him. That is how I know him. Not to say Johnny there, he cannot do that because he's caring. Do you know the other side of him? So Berkeley insists that the real thing, the reality, is in how it is perceived, the one perceiving it. My view of the texture of the table is what the table's texture will be. That is what will be real to me. That is why the sister is walking in the bush there and she's so scared because in her mind she's seeing snakes. Meanwhile, no snake has come to pass. She's just forming it in the mind. It seems to her that a snake will bite her. Even if she sees her shadow in the dark, she will say she saw a ghost. It's possible. But sometimes too, it's not a hallucination. So I told your friends, Belteshazzar saw a handwriting on the wall. Many, okay, nobody saw it. In some other versions, some okay, let's use the other ones. Saul of Tarsus on his way going, he heard a sound. It even blinded him. Stephen was being stoned. He's looking up. He sees the Son of Man, Christ, looking down. The people didn't see. Maybe if they saw it, they would see, then the guy was right all this while. They couldn't see, the man could see. So they are stoning him. I can't feel. He's praying for them. I want you to understand that it's not always hallucination or a dream. Someone is in the room, he's coming, because someone has died and he's running away from something. You say, oh, but there's nothing there. The reality of it, to the one who is seeing, you don't see it. You don't do the feeling. You don't do the hearing. So you think this thing is loud. This music is loud. Oh, please, let us. But the one hearing it, for her, it is loud. For you, it is not. The one tasting it thinks this is sweet. The other person thinks they didn't put sugar in the sobono and they are serving at our reception. That caterer didn't do a good job. You taste the same thing. Oh, but still there's sugar in it. It's even too much. This one taste is not sweet. This one taste is sweet. Who is right and who is wrong? Idealists. That is why Berkeley will say the reality is in the perceiver. You see, that's what is to be is to be perceived. What I'm perceiving it to be is what it is. The idealist Berkeley is moving from how it appears to conclude that therefore that is what it is. And we can't begrudge him yet, because whose view should I take when I am the one sitting in the water and I say it is hot? Add a little cold water, otherwise I'll burn in the bathtub. Then you say, oh, but this is hot. I'm sitting inside. Okay, you to come and sit. He comes to sit there, but I don't feel that it's hot. Well, it is your bottom. My bottom feels it to be hot. Add water. Who's right and who's wrong? I want you to understand that the wisdom in the Berkeley view is that it is difficult for you to feel and see and touch and taste the way the other person does. And it teaches us a very humbling lesson. Now, the sister has entered the shop. I want a couch. You are the marketer. I want a very smooth one because I want to use it for that. The guy goes and says, this is very smooth. The sister said, no, no, no. I want something smooth. I said, but this is smooth. She says, it's not smooth for me. I don't think this is smooth. What is going on there? Just like religious debates, just like marital debates, just like social issues, sometimes they are just a question of how it appears, the point of view of the one you are dealing with, which doesn't take imposition to resolve. You can't impose yours on the person. If the person is convinced that this is how he sees it or she sees it, this is her diagnosis of what the issue is, and he or she has taken an entrenched position, the other person who has taken an entrenched position, will destroy ourselves. Sometimes it's a matter of shifting around to see the other person's way, just to understand what he or she is dealing with, where it is possible. Okay, that's the practical application. You can always return to your original viewpoint, but you should be able to see it the way the person see it. This recent issue at the place there, the water spillage. Look at some of the comments that are coming. If you are not careful, you may add petrol to fire. If you don't have a perspective, we are going to vote in Ghana, for example. Look at the borders, how people see it. They don't think that they are imposing themselves into another country. They think this is their nationality. You have put boundaries there. You and the colonial regime have put some boundaries and say, this is Ghana and this is Togo, or this is Ghana and this is Cote d'Ivoire. The person doesn't see it that way. So it's not always a matter of, I'm going to beat them up or soldier. No, sometimes it is a matter of helping people see it. It's perspective. So that they may have to decide to choose. Let's roll back. So idealism has a strength to understand, especially the subjective one. It tells you that don't impose yours on me. I don't know what you are saying there, but me, what I know, what my hands have handled, I'm quoting scripture now, what I have said, and you people are saying so me, what I know is that I was blind, now I can see. And that settles it. Say, how can you go and sit there and go and do this and do, the person is the one seeing it their way. Okay. But the problem though is you too, because you see it that way doesn't mean that is what the thing is necessarily. It may only be how it comes across to you. So the same Lion of the tribe of Judah is the lamb that was slain, and yet he was led like a sheep to the slaughter. See, one person, different realities for different purposes. The Lion of the tribe of Judah is a lion. I thought lions eat lambs, yet he's also the lamb that was slain, and yet he is the mother lamb. The sheep led to the slaughter. God may present himself to you as fire, maybe Moses or Elijah, but for another person, he is just wind. For another person, when I say it's just, it tells you that perhaps then the reality may encompass several other things that you haven't given attention to because you haven't matured to say it. Or that is what he wants you to know of him for now until you grow. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. When I became a man, I gave up childish ways. So in your bid to be overly zealous, don't run ahead of the master, he might be prompted. Rise, kill and eat. Then you say this is unclean. He said, who are you to say this is unclean? What I have made clean. Everything I've said so far is a religious perspective to an idealist posture. Don't impose how the thing appears to you onto another. I did some politics. I want to go into some medicine. Don't say you cannot give birth. I'm telling a woman in front of you, cannot give birth based on your research that you've done. Yes, you are very experienced. Look at the word. You know so much. What it appears to you from your research done so far and your experience as a medical gynecologist or whatever. That is what you know. Knowledge is not reality necessarily. It may or may not be. That's Russell's answer. I've moved from Locke and Buckley. I'm telling you, that's what Russell is doing in his paper, which you are supposed to do a critical summary on. He says, don't say that I know it to be so, therefore it is so. Because you are moving from knowledge to reality, which are not the same. But at the same time, to you too, don't say, I do not know it to be so, therefore it is not so. Don't affirm or deny reality on the basis of knowledge, because that is not warranted by the information you have. You know that the research available currently prevents this sister from getting pregnant. That is what you know. But what is really there may surpass that or may not surpass that. That's why you can't tell the sister that you cannot give birth. Say that from what I know, I'm unable to help you. You may try other options. Not you cannot give birth. That is a statement of reality. So what you want to mean? Oza, no for I was into movie. Then on what grounds? You telling someone that? Based on what? Even those without wombs conceive. Maybe science will find that out later, that it is possible for wombless people to give birth, get pregnant and give birth. Maybe the baby will enter their bladder or something. Science may discover that later. Discover it. Uncover what is already there. So if you refuse, if you confuse what you know of a thing to represent the thing's reality, you will be doing what the idealist, the subjective one proper is doing, imposing your view of it onto the thing's reality. However, it goes both ways. The one who doesn't see it my way shouldn't insist that I should give away how I see it and take theirs. On what grounds? So that should tell you the mediating role that Russell plays, where he says that if you ask what the reality of a physical object is, we may never know it. We may never know. He didn't say we do not know the reality. He didn't say that of a physical object. He didn't say we know the reality of a physical object from our perception of it. He didn't say that. That's idealist. But he's advocating for people not to impose their view of something onto the reality. Neither is he against the idealist. He says the idealist is right to the extent that they say knowledge bad yet. It is always tied to a knowing mind, the knowledge of it, knowledge. The idea of it. If it is the knowledge I'm talking about, it is how I know it that I can represent. Okay, so that one will always be connected to who is doing the knowing. The perceiver will determine what he or she knows, knowledge. But the reality, that's metaphysics. The thing's reality. Knowledge is how it comes across to me. But what it is really, we may never know. So idealists are right to the extent, says Russell, to the extent that they say how you know knowledge is always connected to the knower, the one who is doing the knowing. So Johnny to Adwesley is a good guy, but Johnny to his mother is a bad boy. That's one thing. You take money from one and go and give to Adwesley. They know them differently. The policeman knows that culprit differently from how the culprit's mother knows him. That's why the mother will be disgruntled mother. He says, my son has never been caught stealing. Me, I never knew my son. I never know my son to be a thief. How can you say he's a thief? He's not a thief. Oh, you are moving from what you know of the person to conclude that therefore that is what the person is. This minister has never ever done this. How can you say that she's a thief? Oh, sir, you don't know her to be, doesn't mean she cannot be. See the difference? So moving from how you know her to impose what he or she is the problem that Russell says we must be minded about. But he agrees that for knowledge, I can't force you to know the person differently from how you know him or her already. Your experiences are yours. The appearances you have of the thing is yours. That's knowledge, epistemology. We should stick to the epistemological frame and not try to impose our epistemology onto the metaphysical. That is the whole point of the Russell paper that I am going to do, a critical summary. Look at how he talks from texture to color to size to all those ones. He does that there to show you the point of views I've talked about and why it will be unfair to take one point of view over the other, and why the idealist argument then makes sense, that my experiences will be so, real to me, but I shouldn't think that that is what represents the reality. Makasa, I've said the same thing different ways to aid your reading of it. Now, to deal with that contention, that small challenge with thinking that this is how it appears to be, I have ideas of it, so it is what the reality is. I touch it and it feels smooth. I hear the sound of the funeral music there on the park there in my hostel, and it's so loud. So I say the sound is loud. I taste the sobolo or the drink, and for me, it tastes like the sugar is too small. So I conclude, therefore, the sugar is too small. But another person tastes and say, no, I think it's fine. I think it's even too much. So we are contending over that. John Locke says, John Locke, I'm also an idealist, and I will have to agree 100% with George Berkeley on the claim that how I see it is what I can call the reality. When we are talking about secondary qualities, secondary ideas, so there he brings in his primary and secondary qualities, which if you have done your readings as I have advised that you do before you come, if you haven't looked at it at all, you are hearing the things for the first time from me. That is difficult to do. This philosophy, don't joke. Okay. But if you have read it already before you come, then when I'm talking like this, the things fit in. Some like a shisha. Okay. Then now you go and read over and it mops up nicely. And you get it, you learn it now, you use it everywhere. In all every discipline, you are applying the concepts and they are real to you. Okay. So if you have done that in the past, learn your lessons now. See, I'm doing a lot of the talking because of the nature of the concept we are dealing with. I want to make sure I've used so many examples to help you get the understanding. Then we can do the presentations in class later. So look on the screen now. John Locke does a distinction between primary qualities, that's primary ideas, the ones that he believes don't depend on you and I, the observer, the mind. Even if there is no mind that is observing, the shape of the envelope will not change. The envelope is a rectangle. But the taste of the sobolo, that one depends on who is tasting. The size of the rice, if it's 5 kilos, it's 5 kilos. I want you to follow me and get a point. But the taste of the rice, whether it's fortune rice or Cindy or what have you, or the ones that we all take, the lily or what have you, the taste there depends on who is eating. So some will like lily rice, some will like Cindy, some will like fortune, some will like jasmine. But the kilos, whether lily or Cindy or what have you, is 5 kilos weight. It looks like that one is objective. It doesn't depend on the knowing mind, the perceiver, the one who is doing the sensing. So I have to see it before it will be 5 kilos. No, even if I'm not seeing it, there can be a certain level of objectivity to the size, to the weight, to the position. This is what Locke is saying. So that those ones are primary, they are basic. The secondary ones are the sound. The sound of the music depends on who is hearing. The color of the dress, because some are colorblind, or your relation, if the sun's direction is so and so, or you're wearing sunglasses, you may see differently. So color, sound, texture, smooth or rough, taste. These are supposedly, according to Locke. Look, Berkeley doesn't distinguish the two qualities. He calls all of them secondary. They are all relative to the observer. They all depend on who is seeing. That's why for him to be is to be perceived. That's Berkeley. John Locke says no, some of the qualities are relative to the observer. Others are not. They don't depend on the observer. So that is how come he has distinguished on my screen now subjective qualities from the objective ones. The ones he calls subjective are the secondary ones. They are in secondary school. Color, texture, because you need someone else. The observer must be there, I should say. I have to be there to determine the color of the texture, the taste, which can vary from me to the other person. So the sister wants a smooth couch. She has to be there to do the feeling, because the other person in the shop thinks that this is smooth and she thinks it's not smooth, and you can't argue or disagree. Maybe it is the shape. Think about it. If it's rectangle, it's rectangle. It's not like my rectangle versus your rectangle. This is supposedly what Locke is saying. So look on my screen, please, and tell me the qualities that, I just want to know if you are there, then I'll continue. The qualities that Locke calls primary, they are on my screen. What are they? I want chorus answers.
Size.
Very good. Size. There's only one person in the class.
Position and shape.
Position.
Good.
Shape.
Position. Are there only
And
two ladies?
movement.
I can see them all.
And
That's
movement.
Shape.
Ewenam,
Movement.
Movement.
Emmanuel
Move.
Ba, Lesson and Ponsa. They are
Yes,
getting marks for that. I just saw Desmond Ahin.
And
movement.
movement. Yes, Mama.
Abigail, I don't have your full name. How will I give you marks? Hmm? I'm not joking, no. I saw when you come online, don't put Ama, Kofi, Yaya, and those things. Put your full name. Mm. Because I reward class participation. See how I did it right now. If the person has just logged on and is eating gobe under the tree day, he just lost marks. Ewenam Benson. Is it Ewenam or Ewenam? Yeah, it's Ewenam. Okay, let's continue. I got only two names from the chorus answers. I got by Emmanuel Ewenam Benson. Blessings name is already on my file. Abigail, I wanted to give you a mark, but I see only Abigail. When I Google Abigail, there will be 13 of them. So which Abigail is that? Mm. Okay, let's go. The next time when I ask, please participate. Because I'm rewarding you for that. So I'm saying that on our screen we can tell that John Locke calls size, position, shape, movement, all of them as primary, simply meaning that they don't depend on the observer. And therefore, such qualities, such ideas for him can exist even if no one is watching. But then, what about the secondary qualities? Give me the secondary qualities you see on my screen.
Color.
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 Sound.
Sound.
Yeah,
Texture.
I'm on
Sound.
for
Texture.
Francis KJ. Francis KJ. The ladder. The ladder. Let me write it down before they are laughing, Francis KJ. Yeah, but I'm you know. Hey, the ladder. I'm seeing, hey, no, it's the ladder at the glare. Hey, let me write it fast. Okay, I see only two, so Blessing has answered again. Who else? I said something else that I have not included there. Look at it. If you are making notes, you will see. I said color, sound, texture. But when I was elaborating, I added something. What is
Shape.
it? No,
Shape.
shape is for primary quality. I said a secondary quality is not the color, sound, texture. Look at it very well.
Taste. Taste.
Very good. Who said it?
Let's
Hey, bless you. Then you get all the marks. Oh. You have 3 on my file already. The taste. Very good. The taste. So for John Locke, taste to cry is secondary. But then because there can be primary qualities, he believes that we can have existence. That is where the problem with his idealism comes. He becomes inconsistent. We can have something existing, yet not as a mind. Meanwhile, you are an idealist. You say the reality is mind and ideas. Okay, the hairdresser, before she can do the material hair for you, she has to have the idea in her mind. The idea is created in her mind before it manifests. The draftsman or the architect has to have the idea of the building. So what you are putting up, buying cement, what have you, is just bringing into manifestation an idea that is already in the mind. You know where the kitchen will be, the hall, the chandelier will be here, this place will be this place will be, I will do porch, it's already there. The whole Dubai is an idea in someone's mind that has been manifested. That is why it can be created at another place, another place, another place. God doesn't finish create it because the idea is there, the original is there. You just take it and replenish. And replenish. I know why you refill. If you take someone's creativity, it is not good. That's why the advanced nations are particular about copyright and creations. They reward creativity. When you write, we reward your creative ability because that is the idea. That is the reality which materializes. So that same idea that the hairdresser created or the fashion designer created, she can use another fabric to do it. Cut it for you. If you are going and then it got torn, when you come, she can do again because the original, the reality is there. These are the material aspect is just a manifestation of it. That is what Leto meant, what we learned in the Mohammed. Okay, you can't destroy the idea, but you can destroy the material form of it. If you are idealist, John Locke, then you are saying that the real thing is not physical. It's an idea. Ideas of it. So the shape, the color, the texture. Because we are dealing with empiricism, physical object now. Supposed physical object, sensory object. Why are you now saying that we can have ideas? If the reality is an idea, how can the idea be hanging in the air? Ideas are in minds. So if you are a consistent idealist, you cannot say that reality is mind and ideas, and yet this is Locke I'm critiquing, helping you see it, and yet claim that there can be certain ideas, which is what an idealist is, reality. Reality that is not in the mind. Shape of the object, color of the object, texture of the object. How can a tree, look at my screen now, maybe the whole class can read this. Ask the class, please everyone read from Locke. We are not many, so we can do it. From Locke, let's go.
from Locke.
over on this Iceland and make no sound. Can have no
color or taste.
or taste.
It's
They
seriously
can
Claudia.
So
I've
it
seen it.
must
So
have
Seriously
it
size,
Claudia.
Have
shape,
size,
and
shape,
motion.
and motion.
motion.
Boom,
Primary
Primary
quality.
qualities.
Ajo Balame.
Publicly agree to all.
Breakthrough agree
Overtly
to all.
agreed to all.
Very good. Well done. Well done. I know that you are shocked there. More than witchcraft. Come and see me here. My few minutes say you be. Balame Ajo, what's your first name? Or what's your last name? What's the last name there? I'm
Abigail.
coming. Let me see. Abigail. Very good. Oh, okay, it was Abigail. Earlier you had a mark. So now that becomes two. I see if you Claudia, I got you. I saw a good number of others speaking as well. Many as you have to talk. Hey, Mirabel, have you spoken? Speak. Oh, I see you there, but you're not talking for a mark. Joseph Tete, I think you also spoke. Let me write it here. All right. So I was just saying that is why for John Locke, it will be possible. Everyone look on my screen. For a tree to fall over on a desert island, that is a deserted island that doesn't have any human being there. Later on, you see that Berkeley will make a case for God as the ultimate mind, consciousness. Or some of you might think that witches can be in Ghana and still observe from a distance because of it. We are not talking witchcraft and ultimate God as consciousness, or even artificial intelligence or CCTV camera that can see. No, 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 no. We are talking about human being, you and I, mind. If there were no human being there to see it, or there is no artificial intelligence to see, or CCTV camera to see, to hear, to touch, to taste, to smell, then can it ever be possible that a tree has fallen down somewhere and has made a big sound, boom, and the tree had green apples on it, color, okay, and the green apples tasted good or sweet? If you asked Berkeley, you say if there was no mind there can't be such an existence. Nothing like this can happen. There can't be a tree which has colors, which has a shape, which has a taste in its fruits. Why? Because to exist, is to be perceived. If the thing has not been perceived, it can't exist. Because the reality is mind and ideas. There is no mind, I'm talking human mind now, to have seen it, have heard it, have tasted, then there couldn't have been such existence. I said in the other record, I put a lot of instances, investigating a death issue. Someone died somewhere. You say no human being was there. So Nankai to be desperate. Then it means we can't find who killed anybody. Foolish case, throw it away and let's continue life. By implication, there can't be any existence outside of a knowing mind, a mind that does the knowing. Okay, so when you play the other record, when I share the link, I'll pull it out after our class, this class. I'll rest a little. I've been teaching 6 months. So sometime later in the evening, I take my time, upload them and generate a link and share. So you can play back and play back and play back and get all the several examples as well. Add it to the notes, the one we are projecting from your Sakai now, this one. Add it to the course compiled readings for more emphasis, what have you. And you will get a fingertips. But more importantly, you will be able to use the thing. That's what education is about. In church, in politics, in management, in collaborations with other international bodies, you will see that the knowledge you have acquired will be useful for human life. That is what is important. Okay. So I said for Berkeley, that is not possible at all. There can't be any such existence. So the court should stop investigating anything or trying to find who stole the elections or whatever in Nigeria, or for MP someone who has been killed here. They should stop this spillage. Maybe it's a fire outbreak in some market. No human being was there to testify and confess that I saw a green this, or the texture of the thing was this, or I heard a sound boom. If there wasn't any human being there, per this subjective idealist thinking of reality, we have to forget it. We will never know. In fact, there wasn't even any burning of fire. Oh, we have seen now. We now see that sometimes, it wasn't any human being that did it. It will make it difficult to investigate because there is no reality outside of perception. To be is to be perceived. That is Berkeley. Now, John Locke is also idealist, saying that experience, blah, 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 but he's trying to make it possible for us to at least agree on certain objective things, even if there was no perceiving mind at the time. Okay. So for John Locke, there can be a tree because it has shape. We can see the color. No, the color is secondary. So the shape will be there, the size of the tree will be there, but we won't hear the sound of its falling. We won't see the color of that tree. And you see how Berkeley deals with John Locke. You say, how can you have a tasteless, colorless, round orange? Huh? You say it's just the shape and the size we can talk about objectively. Can we have a colorless, tasteless, yet square? If it has shape, it will come with a color. They are not separable. That is one of the arguments. I've helped this group. Maybe I should pull your recording as well. The 5 proofs he uses to debunk Lockean claim of primary versus secondary, so that Locke will use that distinction to make it possible for us to have reality outside of the knowing mind. Look at how Berkeley deals with them. You want to make it possible for us to have a reality outside of a mind that knows that reality and yet be an idealist. Then what happens to idealism, which says that the reality is always connected to a knowing mind? Now you are making it possible, even as an idealist still, for us to have a reality that is not connected to any knowing mind. What kind of inconsistency is that? That's one. 2, what would be the nature of that supposed idea that is not known? The thing is not known, you say it's an idea. If it's an idea, in what mind? It has to be in a mind, someone's view of it. So those are the challenges also with Locke in maintaining his ideas. But the intriguing part is how he tries to make shapes and sizes and position sustain reality, even in the absence of a knowing mind. Now, look at what Berkeley did. Berkeley also did a good job there, except that he left us stranded. if every reality is tied to the knowing mind, and we'll have confusion all over the place. Watch. The relativity of all qualities. That is Berkeley's faith argument that I will say in a very simple terms. Then you will read that when we are tying everything up later on. Okay. For next week, you are preparing with Russell's paper. When you read Russell and you come back to these slides, you see that everything falls into place and they now make more meaning. What did Berkeley say? Berkeley says, I want to take the shape that you know, my friend. You say it's objective. It doesn't depend on the observer. So back to my W example that we did in class, weeks 1 and 2. If we wrote a W here and you stood at the northward and I stood at the southward, I've said that almost every week. It is a shape, supposedly objective, but I tell you, we will see different things. I will see W, you will see M. It will be relative to who is watching. It will depend on who is doing the seeing of that shape. See Berkeley tells so, and that's what Russell re-echoes to support Berkeley against Locke. That's so the man is right. As for the knowing of it, the perception, seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, sight, media. What I immediately perceive, sensation, Russell, you see there. What I'm immediately seeing is the W. You too, what you are immediately seeing is M. Nobody should pretend we see the same thing. I may move around and see what you see. No problem about that. But if you put me here and you stand over there, I am seeing M, you are seeing W. Sometimes because I have gone to your end and seen it your way, I assume even from my end that I'm also seeing M. But it's not true. I am directly seeing W. What about the one I said also in class? If I'm in the aeroplane, the skyscraper I see down there will look like a batches box, small, tiny. In fact, after a while, it will disappear. It will look like there's nothing there. But you are down there, relative to you, down next to the skyscraper. It is a tall building that you are considering how you get to the top without an elevator. I am up there, I don't see anything. Relative to me, the size, remember we said size is objective. We thought that for size, let's it doesn't depend on who is watching. Well, that is also dependent on the relationship between the observer as the sensor, the perceiver, and the supposed physical object. So look at the point on my screen, the relativity of all qualities. Berkeley makes a case that all qualities, that's all ideas, shape, size, color, smell, are all relative to who is watching, not just the secondary ones. I mean, the secondary ones are not in contention. Your car passes around a certain area that has the KVIP, public toilet. It is just passing by. The small scent that will enter the car for that short minute. You can't breathe. You are eating plantain chips, you can't eat again. You have stopped because the scent is too bad in your nostrils. But that same place that you just went to pass through and have gone, in fact, the air has circulated and has left your car. That same place, someone is sitting right next to the latrine. I'm sorry if you are going to have. I just want you to picture them, give you symbols and illustrations that you can connect to. Someone is sitting next to that place with his gankeke and pepper, with fish, color, and fancy, whatever, sitting there, eating and cutting the graphic for people along. He doesn't smell the thing. That's the whole point I'm making. Aren't it? Where they grind the corn, the millers, if you then, where they then they grind the corn. Look, you are passing, so the sound doesn't permit you to even make, you can't even talk. The person is sitting inside. No, I say, wow, he doesn't hear. So I think that the one on secondary qualities is not difficult to understand that it is relative to who you are dealing with. It's the primary ones that you would have thought have a certain level of objectivity. The shape of the screen. Because you have moved around in the room, you have seen different aspects of it, and we have assumed. So even from where you are sitting, what you see is not a rectangle. The shape is not a rectangle. If you will speak directly to what you are exactly seeing, the impressions you're having, the sensations you're having, the immediate awareness, that's Russell's language, sensation. What you immediately see is the W, not M. What you immediately see is the obtuse angle shape. So some obtuse triangle or scaling triangle. But you will say, oh, it's a rectangle. Because if you go to the middle, you see rectangle. If you go to the extreme end, there you see a rhombus. The screen changes shape. Just that you don't give that particular detail to it because you have assumed, we take it for granted and we move with it. If I'm holding a microphone right now, I say put it on the table. But I don't put the microphone on the table, I put it on the cover cloth, which is lying on the oil cloth, which is on the table. Is that how we speak? We don't speak like that. I just say put it on the table. What if it is a box underneath and I've used cover cloth? Because I'm used to putting it on the table, I just say put it on the table and move on. But Russell said when we start being careful, then our trouble begins. When we start being exact, detailed, then I tell you, show me the exact shape of the envelope as you see it from the angle you are sitting. It is not rectangle for you. It might be for the one who is looking from the top down. But the side and side, you see an angle. Sometimes you even don't see the other side of the envelope at all. Shape is relative to, that's the whole point, to who is watching at what time in relation to the object, the supposed object, which may not even be there after all, hallucination side. And so with such argument lines, which I've tried to summarize, I think I've done a good job for you. See, the inseparability of primary and secondary qualities is one of his arguments. They are not separable. You can't separate them. That's what I meant when I said, can you talk of a tasteless round? Say round is shape, so that's supposedly primary, but it doesn't have taste. A tasteless, colorless, round 20-kilogram orange. You know the weight, you know the size, you know the shape, and yet you say it doesn't come with a color at the same time. They come together. They are not separable. That's Buckley's point, telling Aja Locke that don't try to even do like as if we can have a colorless square-shaped tree. If it has a shape, immediately to have a color, because for you to see the shape, you depend on the color, which is supposed to be secondary. So color is secondary, shape is primary. They cannot be separated one from the other. That is the point he's making. Very simple. The last one is, and because they can't be separated, they are all relative. It all depends on who is doing the observation to determine its reality. Okay. And then what's this one about? Okay, when you read, then we can discuss them. So for Berkeley, matter doesn't become any material, something that is there outside of the mind. It is meaningless to talk of matter. The reality will be mind as it appears to me. So someone will say, hey, so Doc, if Berkeley is opening the door, does he think it is intangible? So he will just walk through the door? No. Just like the idea of the dress cannot be worn. You can't wear the idea of the dress. But the reality is the idea. That is what the woman is busily creating by sewing. If you are thirsty, you don't drink the idea of water. I told you that when we were discussing Plato. But the idea of water is a real. Yet it has a representation. That's why God needs man. He needs a human being to enter it. Don't let me preach on you. Otherwise, I'll take offering. He needs physical container to manifest what is already there. Let there be. Before we say let there be, it has already been created. Before the foundations of this earth, the lamb was slain. He was killed. Slain means killed before the foundations were laid. If you see the materialization of that, then you are crying. Women of Jerusalem. You think it's a surprise. God has been surprised. Yay, they have taken it. You pass. It is a movie writer. The reality of the movie is what the writer has created in the mind and then puts it together. Then we are now materializing what is real. So that if you know the reality, you know that the bloomer has been beaten up, but the next minute you get up and do it. So you are not as anxious as the one who doesn't know the reality. That is why the original is the idea. And that's what these folks are dealing with. Not that it means he doesn't see matter. He doesn't call matter real. Everything physical is passing away until Bobby spanner, your Bobby that is standing, that you don't allow anybody to even try to even pass by. It's good. But when you marry there, may you use machine. Huh? That Bobby. It will become waste product in no time. It's just a matter of time. The new car that you have that because of that, you say you are German. That car will become ashes in no time. Magazine, co-pot. In no time. Everything material is changing. I'm just speaking Plato now. Reality doesn't change, it's fixed. So if you remember all those things, then you don't lose track of the essence of the discussion. The point is, I will drink physical water, even if it is not real, because it is only a manifestation. I have to shave because it is important. This container matters because it carries the reality. But don't have an attitude that overemphasizes the accidental. It leaves the reality. This is what these people are pushing. There's a real you that you must work on. It doesn't mean don't comb your hair. Don't eat. Because after all, the physical is not important. That is not the point. So there is a place for the material, but it is not the real. That's why matter is rendered meaningless for our friend here. I think that I will have to share both. You have said a lot in your own too that others will benefit from. And so the key point then is, by way of summary, summation, so that you can read your Russell in peace and know that you have good content there, is to tell you that idealists, as one of the responses to mind-body problem, vary. You can think of idealism in two ways. Plato's idealism will not worry us because he's rationalist. And so there isn't too much concern about how mind as a source leads us to a reality that is mind. If it is mind, and then the source of that reality mind is also mind, then there's no challenge. But when we see our empiricists who source knowledge through the senses also arguing for idealism, then we are intrigued. We want to know how they make that case, because reality for them would be mind, non-physical, and yet how we come to know mind, which is non-physical, is through the senses. How will our, senses be able to grab and apprehend, if you like, reality, which is material, or better still, physical? Okay, we know it through the five senses means. The five senses see things, they hear things, they touch things. So how is this possible? And then we went through it to see that for someone to be a consistent idealist, he has to say that everything we know, empirically, that is, everything we know to exist can only exist if it is experienced, perceived, sensed. Why? It's empiricist. Empiricist meaning, if I'm empiricist and I'm idealist, then there cannot be a reality outside of the mind that does the knowing, that hand that does the touching, that eyes that does the seeing, that tongue that does the tasting, and so on and so forth. So to be is to be perceived, and that is Berkeley. Where is it? But then other here, but the other idealist says, well, if we do that, then it means if we haven't seen it, if we haven't heard it or tasted or smelled it, no mind has seen or touched or tasted, then it will mean there is no reality. Berkeley says, yes, why should we lay claim to any reality that has not been seen, heard, touched, tasted, or smelled? John Locke said, oh, but it's possible to have such reality when it comes to basic primary qualities that are objective. They don't depend on the perceiver for their existence, like the shape, the size, and what have you. In the other recording, I put there, if the investigator looks at the shape of the object that was used to hit the victim, maybe it's round, that can help us interrogate some of them, because round is a shape. So we see on the cheek of the woman or on her thigh, a round shaped something. Maybe you can use that to say that possibly it's a snake bite or something, things like that. We weren't there, but we'll be able to get into the reality of what happened there by looking at certain objective features, shape, size. Okay, so he thinks that those ones are objective. They are not necessarily dependent on us. Maybe the sound of the gun, if nobody was there to hear, would be difficult to talk of the reality of. This is Locke speaking. If you were there to hear, then you hear whether it was boom, 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 or boom, to determine whether it was a bazooka or atomic bomb. So sound, yes, it will depend on a knowing mind. Locke will agree with him. If it is the color, maybe the one that has faded. So if you go in there to see what happened, you won't be able to tell. So we can leave that to as what? Dependent on a knowing mind. Texture, blah, blah, blah. But when it comes to shape and size and position, Locke thought he has been able to arrive at something that gives objectivity to it, until we have gone through to show how even those that are supposedly primary qualities are reducible to secondary, and therefore to be is to be perceived, making it look as if there is no reality except what is known to a knowing mind. Now, that is where we have reached, and we want to hear what Russell has to say to that. And Russell, you can tell, has a scientific approach. He may be more, I think that he sounds like a materialist, but who admits the difficulty of assuming matter. So he will show that it's difficult by taking the debate of the idealist versions, launching himself into the debate, and then afterwards trying to see where he can agree with idealists and where he departs from them, and where he suggests that we shouldn't impose our knowledge onto the real, but we should allow reality to reveal itself to us. Meanwhile, there is a life to live. Have to stop looking for certainty about knowledge and rather work with the knowledge available with us until reality shows us something else. So how should we approach what we know. The humility to know that we may know this for now. It could turn out to be false, like the heliocentric view, the geocentric view. Yet we don't know the new thing yet. So what we know for now, we work with it until we know another thing. So humility to tell yourself knowledge is not reality. And yet openness to change in case reality shows us another side of itself. I am so done. Any questions, please? Let me stop our recording. Substantive content is there. So keep engaging. I wish you well. Now I can take your questions. Tell them, go ahead.